many leaders don't start as leaders. They were very good at something they did, and then they start managing people, right? So that switch of embracing that you have a role now, not to be the best individual contributor, but to be somebody who develops a path to a mission. I think that's important.
This is where it all begins. So say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are fueling innovation in emerging markets across the country. I'm Tyler Kelly, and I'm here with my co-host Leanne Buchanan.
Hello, everybody.
And today I'm really excited because we're joined by Ivan Rapin-Smith. Welcome.
Perfect. That was great. Thank you. That was good, man.
For our listeners, we've been working on our French pronunciation
For the last 30 minutes.
So, Ivan, I'm really excited because we should have had this conversation years ago, but it's happening today.
Great.
And I believe timing is perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what you do and how you got there and your journey. But first, we want to know who you are as a person, because that's what matters most. I like to start the conversations off by asking my favorite question ever. And that is, what is your superpower and how did you come to discover it?
I think empathy is one I like, and I've discovered. I think I'm pretty good at putting myself in the place of other people and understanding where they're coming from, which also translates in understanding what people are doing and understanding business models and just listening and being generally interested in people. So I think empathy would be a good one.
As I think about our interactions, I'm like going through in the clock of my mind. Empathy definitely stands out because you have a genuine concern and compassion around like how people are doing as people, not just like what is the KPI or the output. So I definitely personally have experienced your empathy, but I'm curious, where did that come from? Talk to us about your origin story, your childhood. Where did you start to see the roots of empathy in the way you were raised, perhaps, or any experiences that shaped who you are?
Wow. I haven't thought about that very much, but So I was born in the UK. My dad's English, my mother's French, but they moved to Belgium when I was a child. I was about 2 years old. They moved to Antwerp, and raised in a multinational culture, so in English and French, which was fun. But then living in Belgium, which was a new culture, and my parents were, I think great education. I think about be kind to people and all that good stuff. And I remember I was the kid maybe on a playground who would stand up to, if something unfair would happen, somebody was maybe, taking somebody else's marbles, I would be the one that say like, hey, give those marbles back. And I guess the other side of empathy though is I hate conflict. So I'm always trying to make sure people are feeling good. And that's been a theme. So I always, every time there's a conflict situation, I can feel my discomfort, but the good side is, I want to make sure people feel good, and there's balance, and I'm a Libra. I'm not necessarily big in horoscopes, but that whole balance, I think is a theme with me. Yeah.
Now we got to get into what's your like rising and your moon sign. But
I don't know.
Well, that's for the outtakes. So Ivan, like first, I want people to understand what is it that you do? Like, what's your role now? But more importantly, walk us through some of the major professional positions or milestones that got you there. Right. And I'm going to make it tough, but just talk to us about kind of that empathy journey through each of those positions, like what that showed you based off of your superpower and how that began to develop.
So today, I lead an organization called Watsco Ventures, which is part of Watsco, and we can go into the details, but it's an incubator and the corporate venture capital division of Watsco Inc., a company here in Miami. So it's all about innovation and entrepreneurship. Before that, I run an accelerator here in Miami called the Venture Hive, thanks to my good friend Susan and Matt, who brought me to that. Before that, I ran an accelerator in Belgium called aīre and Nest Up. So that was kind of the whole accelerator incubator phase. And before that, I ran a startup. I was a management consultant, and I ran a first startup before that in 1999. And I think journey-wise, a lot of it, like many people, was just accidents. I mean, I went to college in KU Leuven, which is a university in Belgium, founded in the 13th century, which people find mind-blowing. It's a great university. Only because my friends, I had friends that were going there too, had no idea. So did that. And one of the moments that kind of shaped my career early on was when I graduated as an engineer. I didn't, like most of my friends, get into an engineering job. I met this gentleman called Patrick van Steenis, who had a management consulting firm. And as a student job, I was teaching languages because my mom's a language teacher. So I was teaching English and Dutch as a foreign language. And one of the people in the class was Patrick, and he had this consulting firm, and somehow in the way I was teaching, he said, "Hey, you should be a consultant. You should come work as a consultant, and I'll hire you." So I ended up becoming a management consultant and trained by him, and I'm to this day very appreciative of him because he was very. I was his kind of very first employee, and he wanted to be a really good mentor and coach of this first employee. So he trained me, and he gave me the confidence to stand in front of groups and teach people things that I had never done before. I had not worked a day in my life, and here I was training people from Coca-Cola and other pharmaceutical companies. And that was my first exposure to training and coaching and helping other people grow. And I loved it. It was great. It was cool. So that was something I really enjoyed, and that developed a lot of just confidence in just being in the workplace. I guess empathy was important as well, because again, I was 23, and you're in a room with executives that are in their 40s and 50s, and you're supposed to be teaching them. It was one of the themes was situational leadership. I who had never led anybody in my life, was teaching situational leadership classes, right? Yeah. So I learned the theory, and we were doing role plays, and I'm the guy who's doing. But somehow I managed to pull it off, So that whole building rapport and building credibility, even though inside I was dying, thinking like I had this what's the expression? The syndrome of not being up for the job. Imposter syndrome. I'm like, what am I doing? But I really enjoyed it. It was fun, and I was making good money as a first job, and so that's how I went from kind of an engineering path, which I didn't start as, into a business path, and that was fun. So that was cool. And then the next thing that happened, which is really cool, is that one of my friends, Olivier Verbeek in Belgium, he was starting this startup called Web Diggers. And I met him from my mom, actually. He was a teacher. My mom was teaching him English. And he was starting this startup, and he was looking for people to join the startup, and was looking for people who had both a technical and more business background. And so I met him, and of all the people he knew, I was the most accomplished in business. He didn't know many people. It's like, oh, you train people in coaching and in business and whatever. So we said, yeah, join. Do you want to come and start this company? So yeah, I was suddenly a co-founder of Web Diggers, which was in 1998. So here I am, and this was a really cool period. Back in the day, this was a time of you had all this cool Business 2.0, magazine, and this whole notion of angel investing, which there was not much happening in Belgium, but we had this angel investor who was in media who funded a company, and so kind of just thrown in this whole startup environment. A non-technical role. I was the biz dev guy, and although I had never done biz dev in my life, but yeah, went to go sell the first contracts and close some first contracts. So that was fun too. That was my first taste into entrepreneurship and the startups. And then 2000s, the whole, the bubble, everything exploded, and I really wanted to hone more that business skill. So I joined a consulting firm called EPI in Waterloo, the real Waterloo, the one in Belgium.
Not the one in Canada.
The one in Canada, exactly. And did that for 5 years, and that was a cool job as well, because basically you would leave on Sunday nights, go to a city in Europe, and I was in Berlin, in London, in Paris, and it was operational efficiency consulting. It was hardcore. You'd start 2 weeks of assessing a company, looking at all the problems in their processes, presenting a plan to improve that, and then you would implement. And it was very much a no cure, no pay kind of approach. So it was pretty hardcore. Learned a lot as well. And I started in the consulting kind of the process consulting. But then again, this whole coaching came back, where one of the person who leads the the more of the business coaching division of that consulting firm invited me to join that division. So I was again coaching managers on operational efficiency and whatnot. So that was fun. So that was kind of back into that theme, and I guess empathy as well was an important one, understanding where leaders came from and whatnot. So that did that for 5 years, and then Olivier, the same guy who did Web Diggers, he also matured, because both of us, when we did Web Diggers, we were young. We didn't know what we were doing, right? So he was funny. But then 5 years later, he did another startup, and I joined him to do that one too. It's called Knowledge Plaza, and that one did pretty well. Still around. It's a SaaS company that operating in Belgium. So that for a few years, and then. Because we were doing this startup and we're getting some traction, we started having Belgian engineers coming to us and saying, hey, how do you do a startup? How does this work? And back in the day, Y Combinator and Techstars had launched not that long ago, and we were very inspired by the model. And Olivier and I and a couple of other guys said, like, hey, let's build an accelerator in Belgium. Let's be the first to build an accelerator. So we did. It's funny. I reached out to Techstars in Boulder, and I managed through an email, managed to have a phone call, talking to it was David Cohen back in the day, and on the phone, and said, hey, we want to build an accelerator, with Techstars model. And at first it was like, is this a joke? Like, who the hell are you guys? So he explained the model, how it works. They just started the Techstars network. They were starting to expand beyond Boulder, and they wanted to build satellite offices across the world. So it's called the Techstars network. Now it's called the GAN, the Global Accelerator Network. But we convinced them that we would be a good partner to start, an accelerator in Belgium. So here we were, with Techstars, and we started an accelerator in Belgium. And that's how I got into the whole more. And that's where I think I landed in where I am now. That's really the kind of like where all the things I've done before. The engineering studies and the coaching and the consulting and the two startups. Now I was helping entrepreneurs, create startups, reaching out to mentors, building programs, and doing that. And that's what led me to do Venture Hive in Miami, and what led me to to do what I do now at Watsco. So that's kind of the long story, which I haven't told like this in one breath, I think, ever. So.
You can breathe now.
That they say that the best way to learn is to teach, and it sounds like a lot of your story is.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And I believe that. I love the teaching part and conveying a concept. It's fun. It's very rewarding. But yeah, that's how you learn things for sure.
So 2 startup accelerators.
Yeah.
One in Belgium. Yeah. Then one here in Miami.
Yeah.
How'd you get here? Why Miami?
Miami. So Miami is it's thanks to my wife, I should say. So because I was running this accelerator in Belgium, and so my wife, she's Dutch. Well, she's from Curacao, but she's technically Dutch, and she was working for this Dutch multinational in Amsterdam, and she had been traveling a lot across the world doing several projects, and she was ready for something new, and she had told her CEO, like, hey, I'm ready for a new product, but next time it has to be somewhere warm, please. It's kind of like, yeah, we'll see what comes up. And a few months later, got a call from a boss saying, hey, we have a Miami office opening here in Amsterdam, in Miami, in Brickell. Do you want to go to Miami? So, we had a conversation, and Adrian was 2 back then, so he was born in Brussels, but he was 2 years old. And I was straight away like, yeah, Maribel was like, US, I don't know, we'll see. But I'm like, hell yeah, let's do Miami. We have Brussels sprouts here. Let's go to palm trees instead.
I love it.
So Maribel took the job and came to Miami, and we ended up here. So in the beginning, I continued doing what I was doing in Belgium with remotely, but that was tough. The time zone wasn't easy, and then started looking at what was in Miami happening in the tech scene, and that's how I kind of got into the community. But yeah, so it's thanks to my wife that we got into we ended up in Miami.
So you have such deep experience on developing leaders in various capacities, leaders that are good operators, leaders that are good managers, and leaders that have the capacity to grow and scale companies. Mm-hmm. So your management consulting experience, your accelerator experience, coaching experience. What do you think are the top 3 qualities that a good leader should have?
Well, one is understanding their role as a leader, and understanding that they are a instrument for putting to work, having multiple people achieve the vision you want to achieve, right? And being comfortable with that role. Many leaders don't start as leaders. They were very good at something they did, and then they start managing people, right? So that switch of embracing that you have a role now, not to be the best individual contributor, but to be somebody who develops a path to a mission. I think that's important, and really embracing that role. Another one is this notion of the servant leader. I'm not a big fan of autocratic leadership. I'm actually very allergic to that. So I think really that's where empathy comes back. Like understanding what motivates people, what drives people, and how you can help them be the best they can be, and let them take the credit for the work and try to be on the background, supporting leaders. Another one I think is also just being okay with just not knowing that leadership is not the one who has all the answers, but is someone who's is vulnerable and is human and sometimes says, guys, I don't know, what do you think we should do, right? So I think those are three important things.
Picking up on that last one, which is just the capacity and the vulnerability to admit that you don't know what you're doing, is sometimes really tough.
Right.
Because people often shy away from discomfort or uncertainty, which is the two very natural things that exist in the startup or any world. Right now, you have the pleasure of leading Watsco Ventures. Talk to us about how Watsco Ventures got started. How did you find yourself in that role?
Yeah.
And what is it about this particular position that fuels your fire?
Great question. Yeah. So I've been there for 7 years now, almost 7 years. It feels like yesterday, but it's if you told me that I would be at Watsco, in an air conditioning company, 8 years ago, I would have said, no way, what are you talking about? But it's been fantastic. So how I got there, so when I was running Venture Hive, one of the amazing entrepreneurs that was there was Valerie, who's the sister of AJ Nahmad, who runs Watsco, and she was telling me, hey, you should meet my brother. He wants to do something in innovation and entrepreneurship, and I talked to him about you, and I think you should talk and go meet him. So I asked, what company is it? And it's Watsco. Look it up, which I did. And I used to live in the Grove. I live in Brickell now, but I used to live in the Grove, and I had no idea that there was this $5 billion public company in my backyard. I had never heard of Watsco, so I was very curious to at least, nothing to lose, right? Let's go, just meet them. I have a lot of respect for Valerie, and she's awesome. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll meet your brother. So met AJ. This was Thanksgiving 2014. Yeah, and. It was a love fest. It was awesome. I was blown away. I just walked in, which was supposed to be an hour meeting. Spent several hours there, and here's this 30-something, age is super young, telling me about the company and digital disruption and how Watsco is really a tech company that happens to sell air conditioning and the story of digital innovation and now at a point where they had a lot of. So the story of why Watsco Ventures is, so Watsco's technology story started with the core business. And again, and for context, so Watsco's business is air conditioning distribution. So our customers are air conditioning contractors, about 100,000 of them. And if a contractor goes to your house and they need to replace or repair your system, whatever they need to do the job, they will buy from a Watsco store, right? And so we have 700-ish. Stores across the US. And so when AJ took the helm as the president of Watsco, one of the big things he wanted to do is be the generation that brings technology to the amazing companies his father built, which is this network of brick and mortar companies. So it started before my time with hiring a CTO and doing things around the core business, so mobile apps and e-commerce and other good things. But as Watsco was developing their muscle, there were these ideas that didn't quite fit the core business, but felt interesting as adjacent opportunities to help the core, and talked to AJ, and so AJ hired me to start Watsco Ventures to go and explore opportunities to grow Watsco, but with adjacent ideas to the core business. So that's what we do today. So the core of Watsco Ventures is how can we support our customers, air conditioning contractors, not in the sourcing part of the things they need to do. That's Watsco and Watsco Tech, and Steve, our CTO, runs that. It's more like how can we help them in all other aspects of their business, in their marketing, in their sales, in operations, in their HR. So we're building this portfolio of companies that help 21st century contractors, run their business. And the way we do that is either by building those companies. So we have an incubator here in Coconut Grove where we build those startups ourselves when we think it's the right thing to do, or we partner with startups, or we acquire startups, or we invest in startups. So it's a very customer focused approach where we expand the value we bring to our customers through innovation and technology. So that's the core of what I do. So again, had you told me 8 years ago, like you're going to work for a HVAC company, I would have said no way. But the cool thing is it's a huge industry that and it's one of those industries that hasn't really been touched by technology disruption until recently, right? So this huge greenfield of opportunity with an amazing company that had the vision from the leadership, and B the balance sheet to really invest and think long term. The cool thing about Watsco is it's a family company. It's publicly traded, but it's a family controlled company. So you have the quarter to quarter, you have to improve you have to drive your results, but that thinks long term. AGR often says we don't think in quarters, we think in quarter centuries. Mm-hmm. And I love that short-term bias for action, but the patience that it requires to really change something in the long term, which we see today. We started this 10 years ago. Watsco started 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and now we're seeing that that momentum where we're light years ahead of many of the other companies we hadn't. Right. So that's anyway how I ended up was through AJ's sister, who I met at the Venture Hive.
And it's still pretty rare to have that outlook. With so much of today's economy being profit now. I agree,
absolutely. That's why I love the company. That's why I'm still there. I love the culture at Watsco. Very entrepreneurial. It's a very although they're Fortune, next year probably be a Fortune 500 company, which is crazy, but it doesn't have that feel to it. It's a very it's decentralized and very much empowers leaders to do their thing, right? So there's a very clear vision to where we want to be, and then just amazing people that just get along and just do stuff. It's a great company, it really is. I'm really happy there.
Awesome.
It's time
Ooh,
for the lightning
round.
Are
you ready?
Already?
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like we got to play Migos. Is you ready? All right, you first.
Am I first?
Yeah, you go
All
first.
Right. Let's see here. What are you working towards that you could use help with?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a bit of a cliche answer, but I just need more people. We just need more talent. There's just so many cool projects we're working on, and it's always the main thing on our mind is how do we find more people to help us on all these cool things we're doing. Environment is a big theme lately, so really looking for help on really driving more of that. How can we reduce carbon emissions in the space of heating and cooling, and driving more programs there. Just more cool peeps to come and help us with projects.
Ivan, how do you show love to others?
Small things, like for example, like at the office, what I like to do is bring cookies and little treats and snacks, and I don't say anything. I just put them on the table, and it's awesome to just see people gravitate and like who brought the cookies, and it's just little moments of pleasure. That's fun. Small things go a long way. I like those.
What is most important to you?
Again, cliche, but family first. It's just the core. And I feel it. I'm out of balance if something is not right with a family, it affects me like big time. So most important is family, like bar none, absolutely.
What do you want to let go of?
I still have that imposter syndrome sometimes. Sometimes I still feel like, who am I to be doing this? I still have sometimes that chip on my shoulder. I'd love to just get rid of that.
Just like brush it off your shoulder.
With that, Ivan, how can people get in touch with you, whether it's social media, websites, with the company, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so website, watsco.com for Watsco, watscoventures.com for Watsco Ventures. I'm not super active on social media. LinkedIn would be the one I tend to respond the most. I am on Twitter, but I rarely use it. And otherwise just hit me up and come to Coconut Grove. I always love inviting people to the office, because again, people have no idea that there's an office in Coconut Grove that employs 6,000 people. in our backyard, right? So love doing the office tour, and anytime.
This has been such a great conversation. I love learning more about your experience, your background, and your superpowers. So thank you for joining us, Ivan.
It was fun. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Pleasure. Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come